Chapter 1. The Phoenix Calls. Behold, good folk, and gather round my firelit stage, to hear a tale of valor wrought in a darkling age. When whispers of the undead crept through a weary land, a squire named Aeron rose, with sword in youthful hand. In Torrens Bend he dwelt, his father a blacksmith grand, whose hammer rang at dawn's first light across the humble land. They heard the fearful rumors, purges set aflame, the order of the phoenix torn, dark powers staking claim. One day, from out the marshy fog, a ragged band arrived, their faces pale with grief and dread. They barely had survived. They told of ghouls and cruelty, a swirl of dread and strife, of farmsteads scorched as heretics, of fear that choked all life. No sooner had those refugees poured out their trembling woes, when shrill alarms upon the gate called watchers to their bows. A pack of slavering ghoul thralls advanced across the plain, their hunger rotted into bone, to necromancer chained. Aeron snatched his father's steel, ill-forged yet strong of will. He joined the village line of shields, though but a novice still. The ghouls assailed with gnashing jaws, with eyes of bloody red. The folk of Torrens Bend held fast, though many quaked with dread. Young Aeron felt his courage rise, as though a flame within. He parried claws and thrust his blade beneath a ghoul thing's chin. It staggered, shrieking, black blood spilled upon the trodden clay. Then, slumped at last, a wretched husk, undone by mortal fray. When all the beasts were driven off, the gate shut to the night. A hush of awe fell o'er the folk. This lad had joined the fight. Then came a priestess, cloaked in gray, crest of the phoenix worn. Sister Elven, she named herself, her beautiful face and voice forlorn. For tales of purging scarred her heart, the state's corruption spread, and fractious groups within her order sowed both fear and dread. Yet in Aeron's eyes she sensed a light, a courage unalloyed, a fire that might burn free of greed and darkness be destroyed. She bid him come and train anew at the holy burning tree, where paladins of old were forged for truth and bravery. Galrin, the blacksmith, paused in thought, then gave a weary nod. If Phoenix calls, my son must go. Let him serve truth, not fraud. Thus Aeron left his village dear, uncertain yet resolved, toward the seat of paladin might, where further plots evolved. Chapter 2. Journey to the Cathedral. Eastward they went, in solemn step, the swamp ways bleak and wild, a marsh of endless gloom that reeked, where living rot defiled. Along the path they heard faint cries of spirits lost at sea, for rumors spoke of haunted coasts beyond the hill's degree. And lo, upon a stony shore a fractured mast stood tall, a battered prow half buried there, a remnant of a squall. Yet moaning winds revealed a shape, a ghost with sorrowed mien, bound by guilt and tides of time to that forsaken scene. "Why do you linger so?" asked Aeron, pity in his tone. "I was a sailor once," the shade intoned in whisper prone. "In storms I drowned, my final breath stolen by savage foam. My soul enshackled to these rocks, a castaway from home." A flicker sparked in Elwen's eye. She clasped her pendant tight. The phoenix stands for second chance, for hope beyond the night. If your spirit's task remains undone, then join us on our quest. Perhaps in faith you'll find release, your mortal burdens blessed. The ghost, at first, recoiled in woe, uncertain of this plea, but through the priestess's gentle vow, the shade felt partly free. "I sense in you a righteous cause," the phantom softly sighed. "If necromancers rise once more, such evils must be tried. Then yes, I'll follow, see undone the dark that plagues your path, and maybe find my soul's release at triumph over wrath." So parted they from haunted coast, with ghost in sorrow bound, their mission weighed by necromancers rumored all around. They crossed the marsh, dispatched undead that festered midst the reeds, until the swirling mists gave way to farmland's gentler meads. Yet travelers along the roads all spoke of dread events, The state had labeled many vile in sacrilegious sense. Some Phoenix Knights were turned astray by twisted power's lure, and in the capital, it seemed, no innocence was sure. Thus hearts grew tense when they arrived at last with weary stride, to see the cathedral rising tall with pillars starry-eyed. Behind its walls, the burning trees' bright braziers crowned the spires, a living symbol, flame unquenched, of all that faith inspires. Chapter 3. At the Holy Burning Tree. A summons from the Knight Paladins soon called them forth in hall, where hammered steel and whispered prayer lent echo to each wall. Young Aeron and the ghost, still bound, stood at Sister Elowen's side, before the order's council stern, whose judgments could decide if these were times to open arms or cast out hearts in doubt. For politics had stained the church with accusations stout. Lord Theodric, clad in relic plate, surveyed them with a frown, yet glimpsed in Aeron's burning eyes a truth that weighed him down. Young squire, we need pure souls like yours to stand against the tide, for undead swarm at borders wide, and trust in us has died. A wizened paladin, gray-haired, stood forth to speak anew, but rumors swirl that some among us twist the phoenix's view. Are you prepared to face the truth, that foes may wear our crest, that you may stand against those in power, if conscience deems it best? Aeron swallowed, soul aflame with righteous indignation. My father taught me how to forge, but never abdication. If evil lurks behind these walls, or in the swamp's dark thrall, I'll fight for life, for Phoenix light, I heed the higher call. And Elowen's gaze lingered long upon the squire's face, for when she first had seen the boy in Torin's humble place, she'd felt the burning, Phoenix blessed, a fire within her soul, a fleeting spark of higher truth that whispered of his role. Though words eluded mortal tongue, the insight still remained, that Aeron's fate entwined with theirs, his purpose unexplained. Perhaps the Phoenix chooses paths that mortals cannot see, she mused, her heart both drawn to hope and veiled in mystery. A hush fell on the gathered knights. Theodric gave a nod. Then let the trainers train him well, but swiftly under God. For necromancers band together under a lich's hand, and if the rumors prove but true, he seeks to rule the land. So we'll send you all, priestess, squire, and ghost that clings to hope, to root out tombs of blackest craft that o'er the living low. The ghost bowed low, ephemeral, yet resolute in quest, a gleam of wonder in his eyes to think himself so blessed. He felt at last a purpose found, no longer bound by waves, but forging forward, heart made strong to seal accursed graves. Chapter 4. Trials and Secrets. Amid the cloistered practice yards, Aeron tested might. With other novices, he learned to parry, block, and strike with light. The ghost stood silent at his side, intangible yet keen, and gleaned intelligence at night among the order seen. For walls could not impede the shade who drifted between the doors. He overheard the whispers low of secrets, feuds, and wars. He learned how certain high-placed lords had pressed the Phoenix Knights, corrupting some to accuse the true and good of heresy and spite. He watched as Sister Elowen prayed, her brow with worry lined, as worries of mistrust and lies left half the order blind. Meanwhile, Aeron sparred at dawn, a swirl of battered steel, confronting older squires whose skill tested his nerve and zeal. At dusk he pored o'er ancient tomes of relic armor's spark, and how the Phoenix's blessing shone when hearts refused the dark. Among the novices he found a friend in Amelia, a priestess new, a quiet soul with healing gifts, her faith unshaken and true. Together they spoke softly of the ghost's potential role, to slip through necromancers' lairs and glean unholy toll. There's much we do not understand, she mused with gentle grace. But if the ghost can pass unseen, he might reveal their place. Yet shadows stretched beyond the crypts to halls of gleaming stone, where whispers claimed the necromancers did not act alone. Some hands that ruled from gilded thrones or bore the state's decree might weave their schemes with darker threads, by light of day, unseen. The order knew that such a path, if boldly they pursued, could draw the ire of royalty, with vengeance swift and crude. To uncover ties of blood and coin to lich's cursed domain, might risk not just their mortal lives, but the very order the phoenix claim. So was the conundrum and dilemma our faithful heroes faced. Yet they resolved when shadows rise, so too must rise the brave. Thus plans were hatched to track the lich and end his vile campaign, no matter if the state forbade an action so humane. In hushed conclaves, Theodric stood, forging a secret band, to sally forth and quell the threat that loomed upon the land. Chapter 5. The Ghost Who Roams. When the moon shone silver on the spires, the ghost resolved to roam, with a sense that he should go far afield to where the king's family called home. He drifted high through corridors, all wards he slipped past by, collecting hints from errant speech that men let fall nearby. A mention of a hidden tomb, a swamp-lost temple's spire, a necromancer's crypt called to the wretched dead with Stygian desire. He brought these tidings back at dawn, his voice with purpose laced. Upon the marsh's farthest rim, a fortress stands defaced. I heard them speak of ritual, an army raised in gloom, and whispered of a lich lord's will to usher living doom. Elwyn sighed, determined still, then we must strike at once. We'll gather who remain unswayed by bribes or empty fronts. The knights who pledged to join this cause stood forth with silent vow, in battered arms and tempered hearts, prepared for what must now unfold in crypt or temple vile, where necromancers lied, who proved to them again the truth that none in disgrace should die. Aeron steeled himself that morn, glancing at Amelia in prayer. He felt the phoenix flame inside, no space left for despair. The ghost observed with solemn grace, I see your mortal drive, and find it stirs my own lost soul, remembrance that I strive to do what's right, though drowned in storm, though hope once seemed undone. I shall not rest till I have unraveled the plans this wretched lich has spun. Chapter 6. Battle in the Depths. From farmland's edge to marsh's heart, their solemn march began, through brambles thick and shadowed pools untouched by pure hand. The swamp stretched wide, a choking mire, where sunlight scarce could breach. Its trees like gnarled sentinels, their branches like longing hands did reach. Each step was met with sucking mud, the stench of death's decay, where reeds hissed soft in ghostly winds and led their path astray. Elwyn's censer burned incense and herbs, its fragrant smoke a ward against gloom that sought to shroud their steps and lead them untoward. The ghost drifted ahead, unseen, his hollow voice their guide. For secrets lost to living eyes lay beyond the veil where spirits hide. Ahead, he murmured faintly soft, a clearing lies, defiled. Its stones are carved with runes profane, the air itself feels vile. And lo, the path grew darker still as twilight dimmed to black. The party paused to mark the signs of foes that hid their track. A half-sunk spire, a shattered gate, a whiff of iron blood. All spoke of necromantic craft polluting swamp and wood. The paladins exchanged grim nods, their steel now bore the weight of knowing that this lair would hold the echoes of their fate. At last, they reached the outer ring, where ruin choked the land. The swamp gave way to broken stone, defiled by necromancer's hand. Graves upturned and shattered tombs lay scattered in the mire, where ghastly forms in armor and rags marched grimly for their sire. The ghost returned with whispered dread, their forces gather near. A tide of thralls, their numbers vast, their purpose sharp and clear. Theodric raised his blade aloft, its relic fire ablaze, and shouted, "Strike with phoenix flame, let light consume this haze." They charged into the waiting dark, a clash of steel and cries. The living braced 'gainst rotted claws as sparks lit midnight skies. The swamp itself seemed keen to writhe as shadows stretched and grew. Yet Aeron felt a burning strength upon which gracious bellows blew. Steel clashed with bone as nights advanced, undead lines fell away. But each fresh wave renewed the horde, mocking the efforts of the brave. Elowin's prayers burned bright in gloom, banishing lesser thralls. Amelia's healing soothed the knights who otherwise would fall. The ghost slipped through the warring lines, intangible, unseen, undoing wards from behind shrines, erasing words obscene. At last they reached the temple's heart, a shrine of evil steeped in dread, where swirling vapors coiled around the Lich Lord's loathsome head. His voice rose like 1,000 woes, echoing tombstone calls. Fools, you cannot halt my reign. This realm to me shall fall. I was once a priest of flame, betrayed by prideful kin. They cast me out. I turned to death, and now the dead shall win. The knights attacked with righteous zeal. The Lich unleashed his might, and putrid green flames corroded steel in swirling vile delight. One knight collapsed as curses struck, bones splintered in a crash. The Lich laughed, deep with hollow eyes, fueling each sick spell's lash. Aeron, compelled by Phoenix's spark, lunged for the Lich's cloak. But vile magic roiled, sapping strength. He swayed as though he'd choke. Then came the ghost, with sorrowed cry, I've known despair too well. No more shall hopeless gloom define my soul in this black shell. He danced about the Lich Lord's gaze, obscuring undead sight, allowing Aeron space to strike with all his mortal fight. Sword bit deep in Lich's side, the fiend howled in savage rage. Yet swirling dark consumed the floor, a twisted war they waged. At last the Lich prepared a blow that seethed with baleful gloom, destined to smite the meddling boy to an unholy tomb. But Aeron summoned all his faith, felt Phoenix flames ignite, his armor glowing white-hot bright, devouring dead of night. He drove his blade beneath the rib of that decaying frame, his life's breath nearly spent in turn, consumed by holy flame. The Lich's shriek tore through the hall, and cracks in runes ran deep. Unholy wards collapsed in ash, his hold refused to keep. The temple shook, foul energies undone by Phoenix grace, and spectral lights drained from the thralls that swarmed the shattered place. In silent hush, the Lich's bones crumbled, a final wail undone. Yet Aeron lay pale, mortal wounds marking that he'd not won the right to live unscathed. Life slipped away from battered chest, leaving Theodric, Elowin, and Amelia against sorrow's grip to rest. Chapter 7. A Fire Yet Burns. Outside the swamp, a battered band limped back to holy halls, bearing the fallen squire within those torchlit hallowed walls. Amelia wept, for he was so young, and his sacrifice was great. She pleaded with the phoenix flame to shift her friend's grim fate. The ghost hovered by with mournful eyes, recalling watery grave, and how through Aeron's kindness of heart, perhaps he might be saved. A council of priestesses soon formed the Rite of Light, a circle drawn with runes of gold to resurrect from night. Incense rose in swirling plumes, each voice intoned in prayer, while time stood still for watchers hushed in candle-flickered air. At first, no spark disturbed the gloom, nor breath in Aeron's frame. Despair crept in, but as Amelia sang a hymn, a gentle warmth soon came. From lifeless form, a golden glow pulsed like a living heart. A single fluttered breath emerged, soft, but a brand new start. He gasped awake, eyes wide with shock, restored by Phoenix grace. A wave of awe broke across the crowd that watched his wondrous face. Amelia broke into sobs of joy, Theodric bowed in awe. Elowin touched a trembling hand, overwhelmed by what she saw. And with that act, the ghost who'd roamed, undone by worldly tears, found absolution in the act that quashed all of his heavy-hearted fears. His tether softened, gloom replaced with hope's triumphant cord, released from binding curses harsh, redeemed by this reward. I thank you, squire, for blazing bright, the spirit whispered light. For you have shown me the kind of heart, outshine eternal night. Aeron turned his head towards his friend, though he found his neck quite stiff. Go in peace, my good and honorable uncle, though sorely you'll be missed. Thus, unbound from the haunting coast and solemn duty, the ghost could rest in peace. His mission done, he vanished softly with a tender smile, a final, sweet release. Epilogue. Knighted in flame. Days later, in the courtyard broad, the faithful gathered near to see the squire, once thought lost, stand tall without a fear. Relic armor, blessed by fire, shone bright upon his form. He knelt before the gathered knights, who signaled a new dawn. With Theodric's blade upon his brow, they dubbed him Paladin, a youth reborn through sacrifice, a servant born to win. Against the creeping dark, the lies that twisted faith to evil. Against the state's corruption deep, whose purges threatened upheaval. And so, a hush of hope spread wide, the watchers gently cheered. For in his eyes, they saw a flame that near could be seared. Elwyn lifted a trembling hand, Amelia bowed her head. The crowd beheld the paladin, whose life back from the dead embraced the phoenix's hallowed cause, to guard all mortal breath, to stand for mercy, honor, truth, and vanquish gloom and death. No longer bound by shipwreck stone, the kindly ghost had flown, redeemed to realms beyond the veil by grace so purely shown. And still the memory lingered on, a parallel so stark. What once was lost in watery grave, or swamp's unholy dark, could yet be saved by faith's bright core, by forging righteous bonds. For as the phoenix soared anew, so hope and life respond. Thus ends the bard's recounting here, yet echoes carry on, of how a village boy rose high to face the dreadful dawn. His father's forge, the distant marsh, the rescue of a shade, all woven in a tapestry the phoenixes will convey. If ever doubt should cloud your mind, recall this flame divine, that even death might lose its sting where truth and courage shine.
Thank you so much for spending your precious time to listen to this reading of Wings of the Phoenix by Slashkey Studio. Please leave a like and subscribe. It really means and helps a lot. Please check out Slashkey Studio's other videos, some of which you may find related to this story, such as the fantasy metal music videos Arise O Fallen One and Phoenix Lights, and the metal album Call of the Phoenix. Thanks again, and fair winds to you. Farewell.